Good evening, everyone, and let's talk mediation. Welcome to the conversation series on mediation, created with an aim and vision to promote awareness of mediation in the world around us and to talk about mediation and other alternative dispute resolution solutions from the perspective of a common person. We continue with a short legal disclaimer. The views expressed herein are the personal perspectives of the speakers and may or may not reflect the views of the larger professional community they belong to. The conversation series aims to provide a general overview and awareness of the subject matter involved and may not be construed as a legal or professional advice in any manner whatsoever. The session is being recorded for wide circulation. Let me introduce the main speaker and the guest panelists for today's session on need for peaceful dispute resolution with special reference to the corporate world. We have Ms. Kautar Alohi, author, speaker, conscious leadership consultant. Kautar is a thought leader, global conscious leadership coach, facilitator, and mentor. Her work redefines leadership from the inside out and enables leaders' teams to reach their highest potential. She is the founder and CEO of the Conscious Togetherness and author of the book Unfolding Peace: 9 Leadership Principles to Create Cultures of Well-being, Belonging, and Peace. Kautar is a trained true purpose coach, faculty, and mentor. She is part of the Spirit of Canada project, hosting conversations beyond division, and is a co host of the Gathering of Change Agents with the True Purpose Institute in the USA. Welcome on board, Kautar. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Sonal. It's a pleasure to be with you.
As a guest panelist, we have Swati Sinha, founder and director Be the Phoenix Private Limited. Swati is a pol science and law graduate from Delhi University. She has done her MBA in human resource management. She has a professional experience of about 20 years. Be the Phoenix is her new journey to help people with an impactful intervention in their life. She is an author by choice and she is a certified lead auditor, an NLP master practitioner, and a mindfulness coach. Welcome on board, Swati. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Sonal. Pleasure being with you.
Sure. Dr. Muhammad Ashaq Malik is a botanist and holds honorary, excuse me. Dr. Muhammad Ashaq Malik is a botanist and holds honorary doctorate Dr. Muhammad Ashaq Malik is a botanist and holds honorary doctorate in Gandhian philosophy besides education in journalism, mass communication and human rights, and various professional courses in peace building and allied fields. Dr. Malik has been engaged in the peace and development works for the past 20 years. He has served for many organizations, including dozen UN offices, was recipient of an Online Volunteer of the Year Award for United Nations. Dr. Malik has 3 books and several articles in various magazines to his credit. Several of his publications have been translated in French, Portuguese, and Spanish, and is a recipient of several awards and honors from various national and international organizations. Welcome on board, Dr. Malik. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, ma'am.
So now we have a very diverse panel, and it's a pleasure to have people from different fields, but they are related with one very important thing, that is peaceful living. So, Kautar, first of all, let me ask you about your book also and the work that you do in corporate leadership. It's a very interesting work from the perspective that I noticed. So, why don't you just tell us something about your work, please?
Sure. Thank you so much, Sonal. So my book is called Unfolding Peace, as you said. 9 leadership principles to create cultures of well-being, belonging, and peace. And essentially, Sonal, this book kind of brings together a lot of what I have learned in my life. I started my career as a lawyer, and I realized through mediation, actually, just how much the problems that we can take years to solve in a conflictual model can get solved in 2 days when people sit down and truly listen and hear each other. And that really led me to a big mindset shift where I started to explore what is it that really creates connection and disconnection? What is it that creates conflict versus peaceful resolution? And so that's how I moved to coaching as a career, to mediation, including intercultural mediation, and then leadership. And so my book really brings together a lot of what I have learned, and not only at the individual level, but also at the collective level, because I'm also a cross-cultural trainer and mediator. I've really learned how much we take those same beliefs that we feel powerless when we're in conflict. And essentially, it's those same beliefs, those same prejudices that we might have against each other that we amplify at much larger scales, and that's how we end up with war. And so the book really talks about how we can create peace at the macro level and at the micro level, beginning with self-awareness. And in my view, I see companies and businesses as the best pathway to peace, because they have so much at stake financially, and the way they impact the communities that they're in. A lot of them have a global reach. So what happens on the other side of the world, they actually have a real stake in. And so I kind of just bring all of that together to make the case that we will only reach peace when we take care of the micro self-empowerment, and when larger companies really get on board and larger entities really get on board and recognize that conflict at its core is truly an emotional experience. It is not an external experience. It doesn't happen on its own. It is humans that feel, and the outcome of that can turn into conflict and disconnection.
Very wonderfully said that conflict at core is truly an internal experience, and then it amplifies to the outer world. So, like, let me call here Swati. Swati, when Kotter talks about uh, conflict at core being an internal experience, so you were also an NLP practitioner, and let's hear something about your work, because you work with transforming relationship or human. That's what I understood. Let's hear from you.
So, Sonal, as Kotter said, that it's, everything that we have comes from inside. So at first we have to be in harmony, in peace within. Only then we can be in peace and in harmony outside. So there are two things that we need to understand. There is a deep level thing that happens within, and whatever we see as an emotional outburst, that may be positive, that may be negative. So we have a basic, in if we talk about the Indian philosophy, so we have 9 basic emotions: happiness, joy, anger, fear. All these are basic emotions, and we feel it all at all time. It's not that we don't feel emotions, because we are humans, so we will have emotion. Now, how these emotions get reflected as an action, because there are deep level things that are happening within, and those form the core. So that is our values, our attitude, our belief. Those are all within us. They reflect outside, either in way of confrontation, conflict, or harmony. So when we talk about transformation, it is the transformation that needs to happen is within. Only then that transformation will happen outside. So if I'm not at peace with myself, I cannot be at peace with others. So one metaphor that I use generally when I interact with people is, I can pour only when my cup is full. I cannot pour with an empty cup.
Definitely.
So as individuals, we have to be in peace with ourselves. Only then we can be in peace with the community at large, our family, our peers, our influence group where we work. So today when we talk about these things, so at organization level also, people are working in this direction. So
Yes.
these days, bosses are not only bosses, they are also, and I think Potter will agree with me because she is also working in this trend. So these days the focus is not on being boss, but on being a coach and mentor as well. So you're donning too many hats, and one of the hat is focusing on human aspect. So we talk about emotional stability. These days we talk about empathy, and we also focus on having some platform within the organization where we can handle these things proactively. And this has become all the more important post COVID, because post COVID our life has changed at emotional level, at physical level. We are now more focusing on the wellness as a culture in the organizations. So we are talking about ways where we can give more participation, empower more employees, and we are talking about collaboration and co-creation. So organizations these days are becoming flat in hierarchy. So wellness becomes the core. It is today, if I have to say, it is not a choice, but now it has become the thing.
Yes. So I like that concept when you say that organizations have become flat. That means that every person who is working, whether it is in the leadership or whether it is a junior command level or maybe junior management level and senior management level, people would be, the mental peace is essential for everybody. So there, uh, now when you say peace comes from internal, right? So when you are interacting with a lot of people outside, maybe you are internally at peace with yourself, but conflicts do happen when people interact with you. So that's let's talk to Dr. Malik here. Dr. Malik, you are coming from a place of a valley which we I mean you were coming from JNK, a valley which has been silenced by the guns, and we are not going in that direction right now. The importance of peace, where you have worked with a lot of people globally, the importance of peace and peace in workplace can be well understood by a man who has who has traveled in many countries and who's global. Let's ask your global perspective on it, Dr. Malik.
Yes, of course. As per the Professor John Galtung, he divided the piece into that is negative and positive piece. So negative piece that we can keep by force, but the positive piece, the real piece, a piece where the people they were living in the harmony with the themselves and the we can say among themselves as well as the natural environment. So so for the positive piece is concerned, for this there are the basic principles, and that is understanding, and there is saying that we need to walk in the shoes of the others, and that is called as the empathy. So this empathy and walking in the shoes of the other, that takes us toward the, we can say, the sustainable way of the, we can say, peace and non-violence. So in this regard, uh, we can have certain principles, understandings, the basic principle, we can the forgiveness, the tolerance, the non-violence. These are the basic values we need to integrate. And as we know that the main thing of the hate is that we hate somebody because we do not know him, and we will hate him or her because we will not try to know him. So main thing, if we know the others, they are the same human beings, we will never hate somebody. So in this connection, as you told that I belong to a conflict zone, and I worked in Eritrea, that also was the, we can say, conflict between Ethiopia and Eritrea, and the people they were fighting on the reasons which they should never fight. And I think there was a communication gap, that they were not knowing that they belong to not two communities but one community, that is a humanity. So with this principle, as all humanity, one community, naturally, naturally we can ensure the peace, starting from the individual level to the we can say international level. So main thing is, and for this we started uh, the campaign for the peace education. The peace education is nothing, it is knowing one another, means how we can live in the harmony with the ourselves, with the others, and then nature environment. So all three in the opinions. So I think this was the your question, how we can attend the we can say peaceful living from individual to the we can say international international level, and that is by the greater tolerance, by the forgiveness, and understanding the we can say point of views of the other. So these are some of the principle I personally act upon, and I'm really very happy with everybody, because I don't think they are not my people. I think the entire humanity is my own community. So
That's that's a very wonderful perspective, because that's
this is inclusive approach that
yes,
from global to international.
that's that's really wonderful. I when you were talking about negative and positive, uh, when you were talking about negative force, peace through negative force and positive force, what actually came immediately to my mind is that Kotter will also agree to it, that negative forceful peace, when we go through, to an adjudication process, even in offices, even in corporate world, when things have to be just done the way they have to be done, with irrespective of what you are feeling, when junior level is whatever is feeling, because things have to be completed at that I think is like a forceful peace kind of an environment that would be kept. And when positivity, when you when which you were talking about leadership, coach and mentorship, there comes a positive empathetic attitude in workplace, where, if differences are there, they are resolved. And peace is not just kept for the sake of work. you know that kind of an environment, just came up to my mind. What's your opinion about it, Quater?
Well, to me, so now what it sounds like is that what you're describing to me doesn't sound like peace. It sounds like appeasement.
Yes.
And there's a big distinction between appeasement and peace.
Yes.
Peace happens when people feel heard, when they have agency, and they're really able to make a choice.
Yes.
Whether that choice is letting go, whether it's forgiveness, whether it's healing, and then crossing bridges to each other. Appeasement, however, is very different. And I think especially again with COVID having happened, and the trauma that is living inside of our collective social body, it's really important to recognize that there's a distinction between empowering people and appeasing or asking people to appease, because that's just masking certain things that then fester and come back even bigger in the future.
Yes, that's what when I was thinking, when I was talking about negative or forceful peace, that Mr. Dr. Malik said, that just peace to appease, or to superficially get the work done, to make sure that things just happen on the superficial level, not going deeper into the aspects, not going deeper into the values, virtues. So positive, what he was saying, positive peace, that is empathy, that is empowerment, that is what you described, that difference between
Yes,
appeasement and, that's
absolutely.
what immediately cropped to my mind. Because see, the perspective, Dr. Malik, the perspective that you were coming from, and immediately you could say that negative and positive peace, that something that is done because it is a rule, it is an order from somewhere, so it has to be, a peace is maintained. And then positive, that you recognize the need of the peace. So that was a very wonderful perspective.
And Sonal, if I might just add, there are times where it might be necessary to go to appeasement as a strategy, but it can only work as a temporary strategy.
Yes.
It can't actually create peace.
Yes, definitely. And that's what I wanted to ask you. What my next question was, that when you're working with leadership, corporate leadership, and when you're training people to get to, a certain level of, harmony between, and, coachship and mentorship, do you often feel the need for, dispute resolution or disputes, or uh, such kind of issues do crop up in your work schedule with corporates or leadership?
I mean, I certainly see the need for it. As we know, mediation is about a neutral third party that comes into a conflict situation and really supports the parties to hear themselves first and then each other.
Yes.
And so when I'm working with a leader, even if they are well equipped, they're not neutral.
Yes.
And there are times that by the very fact that they're not neutral, they can't solve the situation. By and large, however, what I see is the need for people to be equipped with skills, because most conflict can be managed at early stages and can be resolved from its core at early stages if we equip people with the tools that, again, start with self-awareness, with self-care, with understanding what's happening within us, with conscious and assertive communication. And so in that case, the leaders themselves don't necessarily need to be involved as much, because now people have the skills to be able to recognize conflict before it arises and to deal with it themselves. But there's definitely a strong need, I would say, for mediation, because to what Swati was saying earlier, organizations are flat. The truth is, organizations are aiming to be flat, but they don't yet know how to be flat. They don't have the skill sets to be flat in an effective way. And so that transition requires us to embed the skill sets. And a part of that is the skill sets that would come from mediation.
Wonderful, wonderful perspective. And I think that's where you also talked about neutrality. Neutrality is a big issue that comes up. Even if the management is neutral, but they should seem to be neutral. And that seeming is what it there's a lacuna that comes in, because you can be neutral, but I am neutral. But how do I prove my neutrality? Because I know everybody in the organization, and there will come up, even if they will not come up, openly, but there will come up issues in the mind that probably this person was not neutral while dealing with this issue. So that neutrality brings the need for neutrality, brings the need for an independent person in the organization, whether it's an ombudsman, but ombudsmen are generally, they are employed people. So there is a need for outsourcing a person who is neutral. That's what I believe. What are your views, Swati, on that?
Yeah, taking a clue from what Kautar said and what you said, uh, they're having diversity is just not a solution. Or having a policy that, I am having these many grievance handling mechanism and policies in the organization, that is just, doing a tick box kind of an approach. Every organization, if we are talking about diversity, we have to be conscious enough to make efforts to be inclusivity and belongingness. And belongingness only comes when I'm comfortable and not having a fear of being judged.
Yes.
So that is one thing that the organizations will have to work on. Belongingness will have to come as a culture. Because when we are talking about multinational, cross cultural things, So there are so many issues, not only of culture, but we also have to take into consideration the third gender or the LGBTQ and specially abled people who are in the organization.
Yes.
And as Dr. Malik said, that it's not it's not I'm angry because of a reason. I'm angry or I hate somebody or I have a fear from the other person because I don't know that person. So
Yes.
I have to understand all these aspects of the organization. Only then can I talk about, being diversified or being belonging or having a set process or having it as a culture. And having a neutral person or a third person is an added advantage because it will also negate the concept of conflict of interest.
Yes.
Because as Potter rightly said, that at some point of time when I am an employee or I have a role in the organization, I cannot be neutral all the time. So my personal biasness, my personal baggage will come. So to do away with that, a third person, a third neutral person can come in the organization as a sounding board also. So when we talk about mediation, when we talk about arbitration, to me, these are all reactive modes. So there has to be a proactive measure and proactive forums in the organization that do not culminate into the end result of, a conflict coming there. So before a conflict is there, what are the ways in which we can just do away with the conflict? So somebody can be a sounding board. There can be a process where I can talk about anything without being judged, without the fear of a backlash. So those things, when I have an effective communication channel within the organization, I don't think there will be a conflict. And even if there is a conflict, it will be very less.
Yes.
Because half of your problem gets solved if somebody listens to you.
Yes.
And most of the time, I have my own experience that if you allow the other person to speak, that person who's speaking will also give you the solution. So
Yes.
it's not that I don't have a solution for my problem. If I have a every problem comes with a solution. Only thing that is required is to hear, listen, and give an opportunity to reach out. Organizations, there are organizations that will have big policies on open communication, open door, but in reality, that somehow gets negated. So, the one another beautiful example that we give is the tiger always says, "My den is open, come in."
Yes.
So are we talking about that type of an open and fair communication, or are we talking about, the world is one global village? And taking a clue from Dr. Malik when he said that, he takes everybody as his tribe. So that is also the African philosophy when we talk about the Ubuntu. So
Yes.
it's like, I am because you are. So my dependence is on the others. As a human being, as a social being, I cannot survive all alone. My survival depends on so many other people, on so many generations, on so many civilizations. And all those are now embedded as part of my DNA. So I have to understand that there is other person also. I have to look from the other person's perspective before coming to a conclusion. And recently I was reading a book by His Holiness Dalai Lama where he talks about having a God's perspective. So he talks about, solving a problem with looking at it from 6 directions. So giving any situation, any problem, if we have a outlook of looking at it from a broader horizon, we tend to come up with solutions. And when I talk about negotiation, what I personally feel that, the end result of negotiation is not win-win, but a happy situation.
Yes.
So it is a happy for everyone, not win-win. Because if I talk about win-win, then there is something that I have lost. But if I'm happy, that means I have accepted and I am being accepted. So that is what I think the end result should be for any organization, any community, that we have a happy situation.
Yeah.
And that comes from within. So first I have to change myself, only then I can change the world.
That's a very good perspective. Happy. But the point is that sometimes at this, there will be a conflict. There will be a happy and a sad person. A happy because he got his way. A sad because he did not. I'm using he, but I mean a person. So at that point of the time, we we need an independent person, a neutral person. That's what was being talked about. So when you see an organization, when you see leadership, as Kautil was saying, that neutrality also plays a very important role. So obviously that need for an independent person, need for a person who is uh, totally not known to both the parties, and yet there was very important thing that was being talked about recently by all of us, that the need for you know uh, catching the vibes of the conflict before it escalates further. That's what was being talked about. So what do you feel, Qatar? There most of the organizations do have ombudsmen, bigger corporates, whether they call it the person as an ombudsman or not, but a similar person with a similar work SOP is there. So,
Mhm.
uh, do you think it would be a good idea that mediation services or ombudsman services be there in every organization? Does it become, although I do understand it doesn't become a part of the corporate social responsibility of a company, that a work environment should be there, conducive for work, but do you think that it could somewhere become a policy matter that every organization should have an independent person to resolve disputes? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Sonal. I mean, first of all, I just want to distinguish between mediation and an ombudsman, because an ombudsman is really more to rectify a situation. It sort of has a bit of a justice lens to it. And um, while it might work on some level, of course, it might solve many problems, it has a different function from mediation. So I'll just focus on mediation or mediation-like type of skills.
Yes.
Um, I think so now we can have the best drafted policies without the actual intentionality and discernment of what is required for people to solve conflict. We will not be able to resolve conflicts. Policies on their own are not enough. And so it's really the consciousness with which we hold those policies that make a difference. If it's checking a box, if it's saying we're an organization that adheres to these standards without actually implementing skillfully, we're not going to get anywhere.
Yes.
And so I think that's the first thing that's really important to recognize. And when it comes to having mediation services, I think it's absolutely, in my opinion, something that needs to be integral to workplaces. Because to solve conflict, we need emotional safety. And going to a boss that has an open door policy that we know doesn't necessarily understand who we are at an identity level, or doesn't understand what trauma is and how to resolve it, or doesn't have the time or even the patience. Not every
Yes.
leader is meant
Yes.
to be a mediator.
Yes.
And so that's again putting on leaders something that may not be the best role for them or the best use of their skills. And so having an open door policy can sometimes backfire on people. So I think it's really about looking at who has the right role and under what conditions that does that role get us to a thriving workplace. Because at the end of this, we're really looking for people to thrive. It's not even just about solving solutions. I think we're way past the paradigm of solving solutions. We've seen that doesn't work. If that worked, we would already be beyond this.
Wonderful perspective there. And that brings us to Dr. Malik. World over, we have seen peaceful dispute resolution being talked about, and you have worked in a lot of organizations. So, do you feel the need for this kind of an independent person in the corporate world, Dr. Malik? I think,
Negate
yeah.
means they are inbuilt. The only thing is how we can overcome the conflicts. And I think the peace is not possible unless there is justice, there is equity. So basic, we can say fundamental principles. We can ensure the sustainable peace. And peace is more important than being right. Means as a co-panelist, she was rightly that appeasement is there. But so far strategic peace is there. We need to appease the people. We need to appease appeasement means we can treat that as part of justice. So if you feel justice, clearly that is one thing. And other, Dr. Savati was also telling nicely that that is listening. That is a man part. How the conflict they could be resolved. Maybe at the national level, or the regional or international. In conflict, we need to listen. We need to understand their point of view, what they are saying. So that's also the point. And more importantly, uh, we can we have to understand we can say the opponent's point, and Russell said that if we want to have the friendship, we need to work with the enemies. Means it means by knowing them that we have to make them the partners, then treating them as the enemies. And of course organization level, we have to understand the missing links that is creating the dispute or conflicts. For example, I will quote the example of my institution. The principal, he was saying that everybody should come on time, and the people, they were we can say not coming on time, and there was conflict was going on. And then last month what happened, the biometric was introduced, and that resolved all the conflicts. There is no conflict who is coming at what time, who is going, because it is centralized system, and the information technology, that is a conflict which for the years together we could not resolve. So we have to work, what are the basic, what are the things which are causing the conflicts, and then we have to address from the roots. So that can help in the mediation and negotiation, and that can lead to the sustainable peace. So that is the example just for last month. Now we have peace, at least so attendance is concerned, because that is simply control. So these are the things I think we need to go to the roots of the conflict and then address.
Yes, and definitely workable solutions have to be found out and then implemented. That's very nice. And well, mediation obviously is part of a workable solution for a dispute. That is an undisputed fact, actually speaking. So, but when it comes to corporates or when it comes to offices, sometimes it is seen, and it is mostly seen, that to evade the cost, or uh, that's what we were saying, that the manager or the senior boss, and with open door policy it's given, that you can come to a person who is designated within the organization. That's what we were talking, that is not the correct way to go. That's what I believe. Anybody has some opinion on that?
Yeah, yeah. One what
Dr. Malik, your voice is yeah. You can switch off your camera if that
yeah,
is an issue.
we need tradition, how conflict. Another reason
Dr. Malik, you can switch off your camera because your voice is cracking.
Yeah, to say conflict
Yes.
Prevention is also part of the yeah.
Dr. Malik, your voice is cracking. I think,
Yes. Uh,
yes.
Maybe. Actually, I was going to add only one point that we need to work for conflict prevention and the resolution. Mediation negotiation should be there to work tirelessly. So to that this our nations the nations conflict prevention. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So, well, we have discussed that there is a need for, you know, an independent person who is not from an organization to handle conflicts at a workplace. That becomes very important because in today's world, as we were talking about wellness, it comes from within, but then it comes from within only when we are living in a peaceful and harmonious environment where we are not under the fear of being judged. There is no tension which has to be superficially kept under the rug or under the carpet, and things are as smooth as comfortable. And then, like Swati said, approachable means come to my den is not the option. Approachable means that you have some policy, that you have some person. It's not just a policy tick mark for a policy. You have some person who is independent, who sees that there is a conflict, or if you have who senses, or if you have sense that I'm having some problem, let's go and talk to that person. So this is an open kind of a policy that would, I think, in my opinion, make a lot of difference to workplace. And any closing comments, Qadir? What do you feel about it?
Yeah, thank you, Sonal. Well, I think it's going to be really important as we move forward to give people psychological safety by giving them resources. And at first, those resources can be an external person, of course, that can listen in a neutral way, either support with dialogue or at least support them with recognizing what's happening within them before they approach a conflict situation. And I also think that in the long term, the ideal is that organizations really recognize that the only way for an organization to thrive is to support peace, not only at an internal level within the organization, but also within the communities that it touches. Because what seems to happen out there is always coming back to the organization in one way or another. And like Swati and Dr. Malik have said, we are interdependent. The nature of our world is interdependence. And so we're truly in this together. There is no other way around that.
Wonderful, wonderful perspective. That's for a peaceful and a larger, the larger picture for a peaceful world. Wonderful. Swati, do you have any closing comments on what's your opinion?
Yes, I'm happy that, when we are talking about this, there is also an awareness that is happening across the organizations and across the communities that, there is a need. So when we are talking, that first level is already there, that there is a need, there is an awareness. Going forward, yes, we have to look into it. How do we channelize it? How do we structure it? And how effectively we can use it? So it's, processes, policies can be there, but what is the impact, the intervention that they are having?
Yes.
So that really matters. What is the end result?
Wonderful.
So I need to have a roadmap, and I also have to have a review mechanism to see where am I going in my direction. And until and unless I make an impact, whatever we talk about, whatever plans, processes, policies are there, they will be of no use, because the end result or the person to whom I have to reach out, so there is no intervention and impact over it.
Wonderful.
So mediation is something that will be the future. And that has, I think, in a way, it has already started, because there are many organizations that are focusing on mediation, coaching, counseling, mentoring as a part of their process.
Yes.
So we have to see how it flourishes and makes the purpose, or solves the purpose for that, what it is meant to.
I'd be glad if at least Facebook or LinkedIn recognizes it as a profession, because that's going to be a joke. But when you're looking for a profession, there you have to look at the legal services. There is no profession by the name of a mediator. So at least they will recognize it first. And when the world recognizes mediation as a profession and the need for it, especially as as you rightly pointed out, people are getting aware, people are understanding that there is a need to recognize an independent person should be there on the board to address the issues within the organization, the conflicts, so that people at least feel, where Qatar also pointed out, neutrality is there. Somebody who is neutral, who is going to be addressing both sides very neutrally. Okay. I think we are winding up in 5 minutes, so it has been a good session. So, any closing comments by Dr. Malik?
Yes, uh, three things to keep in mind about conflict. We can say pre-conflict means conflict prevention should be there. The thing should not lead to the conflict or dispute. Second, if dispute is there, then mediation should be very effective, and that is based on the principle of justice, equality. Law should be who somebody is correct, that must be at least, and a victim should get the justice. So approach is
I think good. That that's what we have been saying. So that was really a brilliant session. There were very important points that came out, and neutrality, and the flat organization being at a level of flat, you know, and then the need for the difference of an ombudsman and mediation that Quater really pointed out. That would also make a lot of difference, because many people do not know, and people who are this conversation series is for the people who are common, and they do not understand the legal or the mediation nuances and the terms. So there is a strong need and conscious effort is required to bring that need to be fulfilled for dispute resolution. So, in all, it was a wonderful experience. Any closing comment by the ladies? So we stop.
Thank you for having us here, Sonal. It was lovely to have this conversation with you all.
Wonderful. Pleasure's all mine, Swati.
A
And
really great learning and sharing platform. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to, discuss and interact across.
wonderful experience with two lovely ladies and Dr. Malik from the Valley. We could not have enough conversation with Dr. Malik because of the connectivity issue, but we do appreciate your presence, sir. It was wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. Lovely.
Thanks, everyone.